Hey guys, my name is Chad Barnier, and in this video we're going to talk about which musical I absolutely hate and also which musical I absolutely love. Now, I'm not the most Twitter literate person, but about a week ago there was a viral retweet chain that was going around that was essentially like a musical quiz called Musicals I thought it'd be a really fun video idea, so here we are. So the first one is musicals I hate. I try and be as positive as possible when it comes to any kind of art form. I think everything has its place, everything has value, so very rarely will you hear me talk negatively about a show. However, I have had a negative reaction to a musical recently. One of my favorite places in the world is a cute little Art Deco theater near where I live, and they play obviously new movies, but they also play some old classics, and lately they've been putting on some musicals, so My Fair Lady and West Side Story, and recently they put on Tommy by The Who, or The Who's Tommy, and I couldn't stand it. I feel really bad saying that I didn't like something, but it was almost like someone had infinite money and were on a lot of drugs and just had no one to say no. I was almost offended when I left the cinema. I was like, wait, that was 2 hours of my time. I paid for that. I paid to have such a bad experience. I remember being on the way home and like honking at people in traffic. I was like really like raging. But that's really the only negative experience I've had with any musical. So I kind of have to put that on the list. I hate that I have to put anything on the list at all. Musical I love is definitely Rent. Rent really speaks to me in a whole bunch of different ways. It fulfills a lot of the different needs I have out of a form of art. It's a rock musical, like a rock opera, and coming from a music and a rock and pop world, that really resonates with me, with the grungy guitars and the synths and the different instrumentation that is found in Rent isn't usually found in many other musicals. So I've really attached myself to that. It was also one of the first musicals that I really got into, so I owe a lot of my passion and my obsessive nature of musicals to that show, and it really defined for me what makes a good musical. Not necessarily because I expect other musicals to beat Rent in any kind of way, but more that Rent taught me how a musical makes sense, how it tells a story. Things like I Want songs and story and structure and introducing character, and how you can have several plot lines weaving in and out of each other but still make coherent sense. And Rent was the first thing that really showed me how that can be done well. I love Rent so much that I actually have a tattoo referencing the lyrics from the song Santa Fe, and I got a few tattoos about musicals, but maybe I'll save that for another video. Musical, I think, is overrated. Again, I really don't like to be negative, and I don't think this is a bad musical at all. So I'm purely kind of basing this off just how incredibly massive the fandom and the hype is around this musical versus my experience of it. And that is Be More Chill. I think it's a great musical. I don't think it's the best musical, and the hype around it kind of says that it is. Musical that I think is underrated. So I had this conversation with my partner the other day, and she made a great point that she thinks that all musicals are underrated. Not enough people know about or appreciate the art form of musical theater, and I think I totally agree with her. So first off, I'm going to say that. Secondly, one of my favorite musicals that I rarely see any love for is Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I know it's a bit bizarre to put any Andrew Lloyd Webber in underrated because all of the shows kind of do pretty well, but I love that musical. Maybe because I was in a production of that when I was like 7 years old, so it was one of my first introductions to it. But I rarely hear people talking about that show and that they like it or anything along those lines. Musical I listen to on repeat. So many musicals fall into this category for me, but for the last 2 years, I'd have to say the musical I play on repeat is Dear Evan Hansen. I adore that show. I love Ben Platt. His voice just makes me weep. His range is kind of similar to mine, so maybe that's why I play it on repeat, because they're songs that I can sing along to. And like I said with Rent, I love a pop musical or a pop rock musical because that's kind of my music influences. Musical that I want to do. So I change my answer for this all the time based on whether or not I think I can do a good job of a role, or how alike I am to a character, or just how much I love a musical. And also, I don't want to repeat answers in this. So I'm going to say Sweeney Todd. I've surprisingly not said any other Sondheim in this list, but Sweeney Todd is so bizarre and it's so weird that it works. It's like, it's a horror, slasher, dark comedy musical theater. That's weird. Like, that shouldn't work, but it does. And I think that's just a testament to the incredible talent of Stephen Sondheim and the people that collaborated on that show. So I'm always so impressed and blown away by that. I get to see it live for the first time in a couple months. It's just a fun, bizarre, wonky musical, and I think it would just be a joy to be a part of. So the next one is musical that is the reason I love musicals. And I don't think I could narrow this down to one, so I might narrow it down to a category: animated Disney musical movies. So I grew up as a 90s kid loving the Renaissance era of Disney movies, including Lion King and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid. All those movies were a big part of my growing up that taught me lessons about life and inspired me to be an artist and to be a musician. I owe a lot to those stories and those musicals. I guess if I had to narrow down to some of my favorites, I'd probably say The Lion King. I mean, you can't really beat that. Hercules, The Jungle Book, Tarzan. I think Lion King and Hercules especially. Like, listen to Zero to Hero from Hercules and tell me that's not one of the greatest musical theater songs of all time. So this next one is which musical changed my life? And I have to say wholeheartedly that Hamilton, and more specifically Lin-Manuel Miranda, has completely changed how I approach art and approach personal projects or my passions and creativity, because of just how much of himself he puts into that. I've dug into the behind the scenes and the making of and the process of putting together that show. And in every single detail, every single tiny little piece of the puzzle that is Hamilton the musical, I'm inspired. I am in awe of the work of Lin-Manuel Miranda and his team and the people that put it together. But that show makes me so happy that it exists in the world, that I can listen to it and be inspired by it every day. So the last one is guilty pleasure. And this one I find a bit of an interesting question, because it assumes that there are musicals that you shouldn't like. And I think that is a funny notion in any kind of art. So I think the idea that you're not allowed to like something is a bit silly. I heard years ago someone said to me that their guilty pleasure was Justin Bieber. Don't you just mean your pleasure? Aren't you allowed to just be a fan? So for this question, I kind of don't want to answer. I'm going to leave this one open. Maybe you guys can let me know if I'm completely off about that. Is there a guilty pleasure musical for you? I'd love to know. Also, what are your musicals answers? I'll leave the categories in the description below, and maybe you can fill it out in the comments, because that would be really cool to see as well. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. That was fun, and I'll see you in another video.